What's going on, man? Usually I only do my Bible studies on the Good Narcissist page, but I'm gonna do this one on a couple of other pages because this message is extremely important. We're going into a time, see in the Bible, when we speak about a time, it doesn't explain how long the time is, but it does tell you that you are in a time. Right now, we are headed into a time where things are going to be and begin to be extremely difficult. People going on about Donald Trump, going on about Joe Biden stepping down, going on about Kamala Harris. Um, the voice, God told me, pay attention to your family. Uh, Pay attention to what they got going on, because what you finna see outside is finna be a mess as far as these candidates. You can't worry about that. Make sure that your family keeps their sanity in these times. And so I'm gonna read this here, man. This is Exodus chapter 1. I feel we are headed into a Exodus period, and it's important for people to understand the times we are in, to not get rooted into what's going on in America, but to find out what's going on in our hearts and what's going on in our homes. So I'm gonna read. This is Exodus chapter 1. These are the names of the Israelites who went to Egypt with Jacob, each bringing his family members: Reuben, Simeon, Levi, and Judah; Issachar, Zebulun, and Benjamin; Dan and Naphtali; Gad and Asher. 70 persons in all generated by Jacob's seed. Joseph was already in Egypt. Then Joseph died, and all his brothers, that whole generation. They were very prolific, a population explosion in their own right, and the land was filled with them. Now that's important, because we're going into a time where Joseph and his brothers, they done moved on. They whole little generation, the things that they brought from the land over to Egypt, how they grew that land, how they grew in numbers. So that time has passed. When Jacob done went on, Joseph done went on, all the brothers done went on. Now we're going into a new time. So that was just the first part of Exodus chapter 1. Let's go into the times. A new king who didn't know Joseph. A new king came to power in Egypt who didn't know Joseph. He spoke to his people with alarm. There are way too many of these Israelites for us to handle. We've got to do something. Let's devise a plan to contain them, least if there's a war, should they join our enemies or just walk off and leave us. Always remember, they did not want them Israelites to leave, because they knew that the Israelites were the builders of societies. These people, if you want your society built, those are the people. So why they start talking to people, man, we don't want you here, go back to your place, whatever. They do not want you to leave, because if you leave, the soul of who you are will leave with them. Or let's just say a country invades it. They don't want black people to join whoever's invading and turn on them. So, hey, man, we got to do something. So they organized them into work gangs and put them to hard labor under gang foremen. They built the storage cities, Pithom and Ramses, for Pharaoh. But the harder the Egyptians worked them, the more children the Israelites had. Children everywhere. Don't y'all see that today? They talk about black folk. We still having babies willy-nilly all over the place. When you lose spirit and when you don't have fathers and when you don't have a lot of things, the children go willy-nilly and they become their own adults in a sense. They become their own father. I'm a father myself. And so they go out, they start having babies. We see these kids out here just having babies, really, really willy-nilly all day. But this is all God's plan, man. When the people lose themselves or they don't have money, the only thing available is sex. If you lived in the country and you seen country folks, like it's not a lot to do in the country. So most of them kids be down there. So anyways, it's just like that, man. When people don't have money, when people don't have anything else to do, COVID showed this. When people don't have anything else to do in the house for 3 months, a lot of kids came from COVID. So let me continue on. The Egyptians got so they couldn't stand the Israelites and treated them worse than ever. Don't you see that today? Crushing them with slave labor. They made them miserable with hard labor, making brick and mortar and backbreaking work in the fields. They piled on the work, crushing them under the cruel workload. The king of Egypt had to talk with the 2 Hebrew midwives, one named Shiphrah and the other Puah. He said, when you deliver the Hebrew woman, look at the sex of the baby. If it's a boy, kill him. If it's a girl, let her live. But the midwives had far too much respect for God and didn't do what the king of Egypt ordered. They let the baby boys live. The king of Egypt called in the midwives. Why didn't you obey my orders? You've let the babies live, those babies live. The midwives answered Pharaoh, the Hebrew women aren't like the Egyptian women. Man, why do I keep telling y'all like that? Don't I keep telling you you're not like these people? We are not like the so-called American people. We are much different. We got a whole different God, a whole different setup than all of these people. We are to run away from these people's ways. We are not like them. No way. The Hebrew women aren't like the Egyptian women. They're vigorous. Before the midwife can get there, they've already had the baby. It's already God's plan. Already God's plan. God was pleased with the midwives. The people continue to increase in number, a very strong people. And because the midwives honored God, God gave them families of their own. So Pharaoh issued a general order to all his people, every boy that is born, drown him in the Nile, but let the girls live. A lot of people don't understand why you let the girls live and you kill off the little boys. So little girls, you can sculpt them into the minds of the master faster. Like, they'll go with the flow faster than a man. A man does not have the limitations that a woman has when a woman feels like she feels trapped. She feels unprotected. She doesn't feel safe. Men do not be feeling that way. We get muscles and we do not be feeling like y'all. So it's a big difference with a boy. The boy keeps the bloodline of the man. You can do anything to the women. You can rape on the women. You can beat on the women. You can tell them to shut up and pay attention and they'll do it. I mean, they would have to do it if they were only under the American rule. But them boys, if they keep growing in number, them boys going to eventually grow up and fight against us. Because they don't know we don't love them. We don't care nothing about them people. Egypt, that Pharaoh didn't give a damn about them people. But look at it today. When it goes and it says a new king who didn't know Joseph. When you look at Joe Biden and you look at Donald Trump, both of those two men knew Martin Luther King. Because for us, Martin Luther King was the person that stood next to the president. He was on side of Lyndon B. Johnson, and Lyndon B. Johnson You know, Martin Luther King was revered, but that was the 60s. The next president that we're going to have in this country will not know Martin Luther King, will not know any of the strides that the civil rights leaders made. None of that. All it's going to be scrap, scrap. That's going away. Man, look at him. I don't know no future. I don't know nothing. But this second Exodus thing, it's starting to come to mind. When I look outside and I see what's going on, like especially with my baby, man, like me and my wife been extremely careful about her health and all of the other stuff, because I just know that something about these hospitals don't absolutely seem right to me. So when I'm reading this, and I not champion all of these people to go and read Exodus, man, it'll bring some light to your eyes. But those midwives listening to God and not a man were the reason that chapter 2 happens. Had they killed the boys, that would never been Moses. That would have never been Moses. And Moses didn't grow up around all of the people. He grew up around the pharaohs and the king. He grew up around them. So he knew all of their ways. He knew how they lived. But you don't get Moses if the midwives were obedient to the Pharaoh and not to God. And another thing I want you to pay attention to when you see this election, that your new leader, your new president, whoever that may be, I already told you it's going to be Kamala Harris, but what I want you to know is this president will not know the ways of Martin Luther King. This will be a totally new way of doing business. And what I'm telling y'all to do is don't trust in these candidates. Trust in your God, man. In the Bible, it says your God so many times. But why does it say your God? Because your God is different from these people. Your God is different from we might all be the same people, but our gods are different. And that is plain to see. I'm sure when we came over here, we had lost track of who our God was. And so now we have to live under another God's rule. But God is, our God is telling us that it's time for us to go ahead and make our path back home. Make our path back home. Find out who your master is. Find out who Jesus Christ is. That's what I believe. And so I'm gonna go ahead and leave y'all with this, man. But these are nuggets to nibble on. When you start seeing things in the future and you say, well, damn, what's going on here? Believe it, you heard it first. We preparing for a second Exodus, man. Y'all for to see some weather phenomenon. Y'all for to see some foolishness come to this earth. And you don't give a damn what city you go to. You still gonna get it. It ain't nowhere to escape America's judgment. And that's one of the visions I had from 2019 that changed my life. And I believe that it was preparing me for the moments that we're about to have when we meet our Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. So I'm going to go ahead and get up out of here, man. Hopefully you take this message in and take it serious. Don't be arrogant and look over it. At least and do your own investigation.